Hi everyone, welcome to ttff 2020 Industry Events, and thanks so much for joining us. This year, our full film program will be screened online from September 9 to 15 with our new media exhibition installed at Medulla Art Gallery in Woodbrook, Port of Spain. If you're joining us via Facebook Live, please feel free to pose all your questions in the comment section below and we'll address them during the session. Don't forget, you can check out our full film listing and pay for film bundles at online.ttfilmfestival.com. We'd like to thank all our TTFF 2020 sponsors and partners. TTFF 2020 is given meeting sponsorship by the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, contributing sponsorship by Republic Bank Limited, with Shell Trinidad and Tobago supporting TTFF 2020 online industry events. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. And we have a really interesting panel of filmmakers here joining us. I've been so appreciative of all the films thus far in the film festival, and I'm really excited to chat with the directors here today. Great. So we have with us Neisha Agostini, and I do know Neisha, we used to work together sometimes. So Neisha, let's talk about your film, which is Banwari Man, the Canoe Makers. Hi Neisha.
Good, yeah. Hi. Hi, Solange.
Go ahead. Hi Neisha. How are you doing?
Good.
Right, so tell us a little bit about your film.
Um, well, in 2013, I got an interview with Peter Harris, and he's really well known as the person that found the Banwari man. And I thought it was a really interesting story because I think so few locals that I speak to right here in Trinidad and Tobago have no idea about this find and the historical significance of it. And so I interviewed him, amongst other things. And when I went through the interview and looked through the footage, I thought that this was a really nice story because the actual direction was to take it in a completely different direction. And from the interview, I thought this was the best storyline coming out. And I put together this little piece, to educate Trinidad and Tobago and the rest of the world about the importance of this find that, maybe Peter, Chris, his son that is here, can speak more about in detail.
Okay, no problem. So, Chris, hi, are you on?
There we are.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the significance of this story of the Banwari.
Hi, can you hear me? Well,
Yeah.
that was a very interesting video from Neisha because my father actually passed away probably a few months after that. In fact, it was the last real talking on Banwari that I've seen him do. So it was quite emotional for me actually. I was there at the time when we all did this, and there was this team of people from the South, and I remember the excitement as a boy of 10 doing this whole expo. I was hardly taking part of it. But really, the thing that we must realize is that we have so much, a core part of history sitting here in Trinidad and Tobago that we really don't understand about. And a lot of my mission, and I've been talking to Neisha, is trying to kind of push that agenda and to trying to get people interested in really our history, because it's not just the first peoples, but it's all about different cultures. And so, my discussions with Neisha have been really around trying to put a museum together to house my dad's collection of First Peoples stuff, but also to drive a cultural center, which is kind of where this kind of place, this kind of thing would be in the future. Where we can look at First Peoples culture, we can look at our own cultures, and we can examine everything and say, what a fantastic place we have. So in terms of Banwari woman, it's actually apparently meant to be Banwari woman. I heard an archaeologist say that actually from the bone structure, it's a woman, not a man. So, but Banwari woman is sitting in Newby at the moment. And I think one of the things I want to push is that it's more visible to everyone. It's held there in trust. My sister and I are in charge of it. But what we're trying to do is really set up something where items like Banwari woman and the story around them can be more easily seen. And we think that the museum in TNT, it's a lovely museum, but doesn't really, you go around that, you don't get any sense of history, any sense of story in terms of what's going on. So this, I think Neisha's video for me is like a little first step on that path. And so I'm very happy to be here and talking.
Great. And it was a really wonderful story and a great piece of history. So Neisha, one more question before we move on. How challenging was it for you? Because, this is a historical document, and obviously you did the interview and decided to make it into a film. So what were some of the challenges you had making this film?
Well, the main challenge, obviously, is because I had all this fantastic audio. The challenge was really to find visuals to go with the audio. And I mean, I thought a lot about it a lot. I even actually went up to the Banwari trace to see if I can film anything. And I mean, I agree with Peter. I think that it's really sad that we have this piece, this rich legacy here, and it's really not being preserved. And when I went to Banwari, which I think can be a tourist site or tourist attraction, and it wouldn't take much for it to happen, there was really very little to film there. I think they put up a concrete structure that maybe they'd intended to make a museum, but they're bathrooms. And I'm not sure why they are, because there's nobody that goes there that I'm aware of. And it's a really beautiful little hill. And from it, you can see, across, I think, San Fernando Hill on the other side. I'm not sure, but it's a really nice space. And it's an area of South that could be developed. Anyway, there was nothing to film really there as such. And so luckily, and I'm always like amazed by the archives we have here. I went into the West Indiana Library and I was like looking for pictures. I was going through the papers around the time, that it was found, and there was nothing like that I saw that I could find that was published in a paper just to give me a visual of anything. And the lady at the library gave me some advice to go into, I believe it was, I mean, maybe Chris can correct me here. I think it's like Texaco Oil or something, where he had a small newspaper, amazingly, which had all these amazing photos, which is what I, used in the documentary. So I'm really happy with the archival resources we have here. It's really amazing. And I think, many historical stories can be told because of these amazing archives.
Great. Thank you so much for that film and that contribution to our history. And I just want to move on to Claudia, her film, The Woodland. Claudia, are you there?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Claudia. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm fine. Thanks for having me.
Great. I really loved your film on The Woodland, and it talks about nature and that connection to nature. And Jose, the main person in the film, he talks about plants as if they were people. So talk to me about the idea behind this film.
Yeah, this film, the Woodland, El Monte in Spanish, shows what is almost lost. I think the connection between human beings and the earth from where we come from. And in the film, plants and people are shown as the same thing, and the film shows how we have great resemblances, and we should respect each other. And I did this through this creative approach of using this metaphor or comparison, which is not something that I did as a director. It was something that came from the characters. So I was looking for that, but I found that in this people that I met in Cuba, in Sierra Maestra, which is because I shot the film in Cuba while I was studying in the film school. And it was part of this exercise for documentary directors or students of documentary direction. And we had to shoot a film basically just by ourselves. And they took us to these mountains in the southeastern part of the island, and we spent around the month there. And I really wanted to make a film about plants, and but I had to make a film about a person, because that was like the aim of the exercise. So I had to look for someone that embodied what I wanted to say, and I found Jose Manuel, and also not just Jose Manuel, but his great daughter, Malena, and I just follow them around the woods and all this nature that is around them, because they live in this very small village, and they also like there are many communities around the mountains. So they walk and they do, I mean, they have their life there, but I focus on how they were relating to this in like this microscopic almost, yeah, they were relating to these plants around them. And yeah, the film it's about that. It shows how plants have resemblances, and shows how we have very many similarities in psychological and also our virtues or weaknesses. They can be very similar to what plants show us. And the film is about the environment, but it also, I think it also have many things to say about spirituality, and also even anti-colonial thinking, or yeah, worldviews.
Yeah, it was great. It was really interesting watching it. And you also used video as well as photo in it. Talk to me a little bit about that decision to have video as well as the photos together to show that kind of plant life activity.
I took an old camera that it belonged to my father, and I used a film that was how can I say it? Basically, the film, it's not it's a 30mm film, but for film, not for photography. So basically, I loaded a roll of that film, that old film that was probably expired and stuff, and I took it in my camera, and that's why all these images have this quality. This is not post-production, it's what it happened when the film was developed. It has these colors because the film was expired, and it was just a happy accident. It's something that happened by chance. I took it with me because I thought it was a great experience to photograph, but then things melted and my photographs became part of the film, and the film was also very enriched by the photographs that became the reference for the film and the color of the video. But it wasn't something that I planned before, or it wasn't an intention. It just happened, came out, and it was so magic that it just, when I was editing it, I used the photographs as a reference also for the structure of the film.
Great, and the photos really did add to that, what you were speaking about in the film. So thank you so much for that film, Claudia. I want to move on to Kemba, and she's representing here another environmental film, My Watershed, My Home. Hi, Kemba, are you there?
Hi, good day, everyone. Good afternoon.
Hi, thanks for joining us. So this film is a really important film for us in Trinidad at this time, because you know we are facing some water problems in the country, and you know so many people think that we don't connect it to nature. We think it's a management problem, but this film tells us a little more about the issue. So talk to us a little bit about um, what y'all have been doing in that film.
Okay, so the film wants to highlight several different aspects, but it wanted to connect what happens in the dry season affects what happens in the rainy season. In Trinidad, we only have 2 seasons, so I believe that we should, you know, have a bit more of a grip on what happens between these 2 seasons. You know, we're supposed to be quite fortunate in that regard. But I think we take a lot of things for granted. In Trinidad, every dry season we are faced with a lot of bushfires. I know right now, those who are more in tune with news that is happening out of the US and what is happening in California, and literally just pictures of pure orange, and everybody's thinking, oh, what filter is that? You know, what phone filter is that? But that is the reality that we're living in. And now during COVID, this year, we've seen a lot more people at home, a lot more people deciding, okay, let me do cleaning earlier. What people would usually take their 2 weeks off during their Easter vacation to cut and burn and clear around their yards. Usually have a longer period of time during the dry season, during that home time, quarantine time. There's a lot of deforestation, a lot of land clearing for agriculture, a lot of people burning rubbish, a lot of things happening, and fires ravaged through the hills of Trinidad yet again. But at this time, it was more than we ever seen before. You know, so what happens is when we start to destabilize our watershed and have this negative impact, because watershed doesn't really mean a shed with water. You know, when I talk to a lot of students, they think watershed and they just have that visual in their heads, you know, what that means. But what it means is what is happening to your land, what is happening to the ability of the soil to absorb water, the ability of water to reach into our water table that will later resurface as surface water that we could then tap into our rivers and reservoirs and then supply us with water. We are literally creating man-made drought by having fires every year ravaging and drying up our watersheds. So when we fail to make that connection of what's happening in the dry season to then what's going to happen in the rainy season, we tend to miss out a huge part of our, you know, environmental consciousness as to how we plan, how we manage. During the fire season, we're like, oh my God, fire, what to do? During the rainy season, oh my God, it's flooding, time to get relief. But we're not dealing with the issue at hand. So for us, the film really highlights, you know, some of the things that could be done, some of those memories, some of those stories that we connect. So, you know, how we felt, how the forest made us felt. You know, that pressures of dealing with stuff during the dry season. You know, how art and culture can tell a story and can help to showcase some of the challenges that we have, that we face within, you know, our various watersheds throughout, you know, Trinidad and Tobago that are affected by forest fires.
Okay, great. Thanks for giving us that really good explanation of what happens during these 2 seasons. I believe we are joined by Rhonda as well. Rhonda?
I know Rhonda was
Hi.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi, Solange.
Okay. Hi, Rhonda. Rhonda is an old schoolmate as well. So, Rhonda, tell us a little bit about why did you make this film? Okay, you connected with this community that is about fighting forest fires and protecting the forest. Yeah. So, how did you come about making this film?
Yeah, well, Kemba spoke so well already on the issues in the film and the call to action. And I think for me, I really wanted to find a creative approach to highlight these incredible people in their community and the work that they're doing. So for me, I just wanted to take a little bit of a different approach to an environmental film, and to work with fondements and also with the Foundation for the Bioregional Autonomy of the Orinoco Watershed to help to tell the story of their work and why they care so much about their environment.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for explaining that. And you know, it was a really great film. And Kemba, I love what you say in the film, you know, that people are bothered about the situation, but you know, a lot of us are not bothered enough to do anything about it. So thank you guys so much for that film. I just want to move on to Haiti Speaks, going to Ashley Ellis. Ashley,
Hi,
are you there?
Solange. How are you?
Hi, I am good. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. Thanks for a great program so far, and I also just wanted to say that I watched all of the other films in this section, and they're great. So congratulations to the other filmmakers who are on for your beautiful work.
Yes, thank
Thank you
you
so much.
all our lovely filmmakers. Great. So Ashley, so this film is a really great film. I found it really interesting because, you know, you are dealing with the Haiti post the earthquake. And, you know, what's very interesting is that the film doesn't talk about tragedy. It's not sensationalized. It is not, you know, it sends a message of hope where you think, you know, people would be in self-pity and that kind of thing. Tell me a little bit about your approach to making that film.
Sure. I'm glad you actually had that experience of the film. I think that that's something that we were really conscious of. A lot of the representation of Haiti in the news media is obviously focused on moments of crisis and on the long-term issues that the country is facing in terms of political strife and issues of poverty and things like that. So we wanted to have an authentic representation of what was happening at the time, while also offering an opportunity for the hope, like you said, of the people, which was apparent to us across everyone that we talked to also shine through. And so the project came about originally because we had intended to follow a nonprofit called The Gift of Sight, which delivers eye care to global communities that need it. And our intention was to create some promotional materials for them. Ironically, Haiti has some of the highest representation of NGOs per capita of any country in the world. And we wanted to tell a story about an organization that had a more than 30-year history in one small rural community in Haiti. But the earthquake pushed our travel plans back by about 3 months. So we were only able to get access to the country about 100 days after the event happened. And so the small group of people that I was working with, we sat down and kind of had to take all of that in. Obviously, all of the global attention in that moment had shifted to Haiti, and there was a lot of coverage that was happening. And we thought that it was a moment in which we could tell a broader story. And we started thinking about what that would look like and what that should be. And we thought that there were two things that were missing in all of the press coverage at that time. And the first was sort of context around the long history that Haiti has had since its independence of challenges to really earn respect on the global stage, particularly by its neighbors and particularly by the United States, and also the Haitian voice. So there was a lot of representation about what had happened, a lot of coverage about the earthquake, but you weren't necessarily hearing what people had to say about their own futures at that point. So those were the two things that we really wanted to capture in our film.
It's a really interesting piece, and I encourage those who are here in the Q&A and you haven't seen it yet, please go and see it. So just one final question, because we are almost out of time. So I'll start with you, Ashley. How important, because in your film, we saw the different generations. We had the young English teacher, and then we had the older guys. How important is this intergenerational transfer of information?
I think it's really important. You know, I think it showed that unfortunately, that across the generations, they were faced with some of the same challenges. But it also showed the people in the film who also had their own relationships to one another, right? So the way in which we found interview candidates was very organic and very much an extension of the network that we had there. So they are aware of each other, they were working together in different ways. And I think just hearing themselves represented and other community members represented showed them how they could amplify each other's work. So it was really exciting, for example, to see the young man, Rock Lordy, actually transform what had started as an English club just to encourage his peers to learn into a proper school that he's now running. So I think that representation matters because it gives people sometimes the confidence and encouragement that they need, that they feel like their ideas and their lives matter, and that they can go ahead and bring their ideas forth into the world.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And that's why films are important. And Claudia, you want to talk a little bit about that as well? Because in your film, we have Jose, he's followed around by his granddaughter. And that was lovely to see in the film, that intergenerational transfer of information. Claudia?
Yeah, I think in at these times of environmental destruction and capitalist brutality, I think that listening to older voices and also keeping some sort of knowledges, it's so precious, and it's something that we definitely have to seek and also to maintain this knowledge. So in my film, this is the most important thing. I think it's not just how Jose Manuel is talking to his granddaughter, but also how he is also putting that knowledge into his own community and the younger generations, not just his granddaughter.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks. And thank you guys. So thank you to all our filmmakers for being with us today. And we know that these films are really important because they capture moments in our history that we don't want to be lost. Neisha, your film is very important. And also Rhonda and Kemba, those are very important things. And one of the things in my home, my watershed, right? Kemba, you inherited that love for protecting the forest from your dad. That's one of the things. So thank you guys for joining us here today on the Q&A session. If you haven't had a chance to look at the films, please go and do so. You still have time. Okay, take care and keep joining us for more wonderful Q&As at TTFF. Bye.